Now with me in the studio, I still have Professor Bola Akintenwa, Director General, Bolitech Center for International Diplomacy and Strategic Studies. Yemi Adamolekun, Executive Director in Office of Chike Ogia, former Commissioner for Information Delta State, and currently Managing Director of Macfoley Limited, and Professor David Awurawo, Professor of International Relations and Strategic Studies at the University of Lagos, Nigeria. Well, gentlemen and Lady Yemi, well, it's Democracy Day, and we've been discussing a number of issues around Democracy Day and the president's speech, and also the political transition process ahead of the general elections in 2023. We've had two guests, political scientists, Akin Oshuntokun, and we've also had Captain David Mbamara, a retired officer of the Directorate of Military Intelligence. Yemi, I would like to start with you. I mean, I saw you, this is your hairdo. I mean, first time I'm seeing you with this kind of,
Democracy Day. We have to keep up.
These are interesting times.
Yes, I have to keep up.
Even individuals are in transition.
Indeed.
Okay.
I have to keep up alive.
Anyway, let me start with you. The president's speech and the submissions by our guests. Your take.
Gosh, there's a lot. I mean, I've had, an hour plus of commentary. But I think two things that I'd like to pick up on is, I think you were asking Dr. Mbaraba around the fact that Ohaneze Igbo, for example, was not even talking about Peter Obi's candidature, and they were focused on APC and PDP. And I think it's not unexpected because the demography of Ohaneze Igbo is made up of that generation. So that's their context for where we are. But I think it should not be overlooked the kind of organic support that Peter Obi has had. And I think it speaks not just to Peter Obi as the person, because I doubt he'll have had this kind of support if he got the PDP tickets by some magic. But I think it also speaks to the fact that he's on a smaller party. And for a lot of Nigerians who are tired of what APC and PDP represent, this gives them an opportunity to try something new. I mean, Peter Obi was in PDP for all intents and purposes, so it's not that he's not a known entity. So the candidate plus the party and the opportunity for people to try something new, I think should not be underestimated. However, though, as with in a country that doesn't teach its history, it should not be framed as the first time, that this is the first time young people are going to have energy. From the 1993 campaign that we're celebrating today, to even Nuhu Ribadu and Fola Adeola's campaign in 2011, so a lot of young people who were very hopeful about what that could mean for a new Nigeria. And then, of course, Buhari was sold as change, and he had a lot of young people supporting him as well. So I think for me, it's an interesting development to watch. I mean, Labour has sorted out its issues. They had 3 candidates at a point in time, and now they say he's a recognized candidate. So it'll be very interesting to watch what Peter Obi and his supporters are able to do given the times that we're in. Secondly, the spread of presidential candidates that you alluded to. 18 parties have concluded their process. This year, we don't have a woman. I mean, we had a woman in 2019. She eventually stepped out, but I think it's quite interesting that we don't have a woman at all, given where Nigeria is. But I think it will be a very interesting conversation how women are able to hold not just presidential candidates, but also governorship candidates, where we do have one woman, senatorial candidates, House of Representatives, hold them to a question about how do you plan to include women in Nigeria in 2023. We'll still have a House of Representatives and a Senate that did not go back to vote on to vote as they promised on the gender bills. They've gone on to politicking. They're now going to be on holiday for the summer, quote unquote, and then come back. What does that look like? Are we able to get that back on the table? But I think it's the politicking for elections that gives an opportunity to put that back on the table. And then lastly, what Dr. Mbara said about security. That must dominate the conversation in terms of what our presidential aspirants plan to do. I'm sure we'll only hear from maybe a handful of them. They're 18, but by the end of the day, it'll be actually, let me land on this note, it'll be very nice if a lot of the other parties are able to coalesce around the momentum that Peter Obi has and give Nigeria a really quote-unquote third force. We've been talking about it for 2 election cycles. So it'd be nice if we can actually see it being
Okay, Chike, your thoughts?
Well, I wonder what you specifically want to hear from me in all of this. But if we decide to take it, if we decide to break the issues down, I know Akin Oshitokun spoke basically about the kind of elections we are looking forward to and the way it's most likely going to pan out. Like we rightly said, these are very interesting times. We are looking at the two major parties, the PDP, Atiku, Bola Tinubu, APC. These are two major players that have dominated Nigerian politics in the last 3-4 decades. And as far as I'm concerned, they are both, this is their last legs, this is their last chance. It's now or never for both of them. And it's a pity, we never got them when they were young, when they were virile and had all these ideas. Because if you ask me, though a lot of people might feel, they might not feel this way, but I think this about the most inspirational candidates we've had in a very long time. At least if you compare it to the 2011 and 2015, the kind of people we had at that time. But obviously, there's this new dimension, which is wonderful, if you ask me, and that is, like Yemi alluded to, this organic growth from the people, whether young or old, whether east or west, that seem to be resonating with Peter Obi. That, to my mind, is a major, it's a major minus for the PDP, because I can imagine an Obi Atiku ticket. That would have been a very formidable ticket for this time. So with this split, and obviously Peter Obi's whole situation just took a life of his own. I don't think it was something that was planned. I think it just grew. And like they said, it has turned into a movement. It's now a mass movement. People are trying to, pigeonhole it into the Eastern thing. And people are saying, no, this has nothing to do with the East. This is a Nigerian thing. And it is good. Again, the NNPP, which Kwankwaso is promoting, will also hurt the North. The North in their own calculations, both in the PDP and in the APC as well. So there's, we might start looking at a kind of hung elections to an extent, because when we look at what the Constitution says, the provisions and everything, there might not be any outright winner, at the end of the day, and people might go into some different kinds of horse trading and all of that. So, like you rightly told Yemi, with her new hairdo, this is a very, very these are interesting times, like the Chinese will say, and we're all happy to live it.
May we live in interesting times.
Yes. So with those elections, we'll see how it works out. Then with the case of security, that the security expert just talked about, that to my mind, this president has been with us for 7 years, and really and truly speaking, I don't know how many things he has said that, has happened. And, so when he talks, it's not as if we don't listen to our president. I personally, I just take it with a pinch of salt, because we've heard all of this. These kidnappings are going on. These killings are going on. Everything. And you're telling us, how can something you couldn't resolve in 7 years that got so bad, and you have 1 year to go? You've even gone into a lame duck mode, because the minute Asiwaju was elected as the candidate of that party, if he doesn't realize, he's now almost lame duck. So it is what the party will do after him if they get into government. That is what Nigerians are looking up to. And of course, what other parties will do if truly, and because just like the security expert said, Nigerians will make sure that there is a free and fair elections. It's going to be despite him or in spite of him. Yep. I can assure him of that. We will have a free and fair election because people are ready this time. You see, we have got our backs out to the walls, and enough is enough. That is where I think we are now.
Okay, Professor Akintenewa, your turn. Professor Awurawa, please be on standby. After Professor Akintenewa, I'll come to you.
I would like to disagree to agree on a number of points. The security experts give us an idea of 30-year cycle of insecurity. And as much as I want to agree with him, I think that the dynamics for every event cannot be used to make, an affirmatory, a general statement. At best, it must still be allowed to remain hypothetical. For instance, he told us that because of the incident of 1964,
1963.
no, 1963, he told us Republican state, and he used 1963 as the basis for his analysis. So 1963 is just the movement from an independentist posture to adoption of a Republican constitution. So the movement, the adoption of the enactment of a new constitution to have a Republican system is not responsible for the coup per se. The coup itself was on January 15, 1966. And if I can still remember very well, the counter coup was not in 1967. The only thing is that in 1967, the war broke out.
That's right.
So in July of 1966, that's when we had the counter coup. Now, the real problem itself began in 1966. So, 1963 is still different from 1966. So, the foundational factor of the analysis in itself is not tenable. Now, he looked at 1963 to move to 1993. Fine, he was correct. But the dynamics of the problem in 1963 quite different from the dynamics in 1993. 1993, it was more of the factor of dishonesty par excellence, because you had an election that actually took place. The election results were even well known, published. People were in possession. You cannot come out and say you annul a fait accompli. It's not possible. It is already a fait accompli. So you cannot say you are annulling something that took place. You can disagree with the result. You can debate. You can give your own opinion on that. But it's already history. So, unlike the dynamics in 1963, the problems there, right, from the Operation Wet here in the Southwest, and then the hula baloo that followed in 1964 that prompted the coup. They are not the same thing. Now, he's now looking at another 30 years. He's looking at 2023. Please, 2023, only God can determine what will happen. You cannot make a confirmation, a theoretical statement as at now, when 2023 is not yet to be. The best thing that can occur is that you can take advantage of the dynamics of the current situation to make a prediction, which at best will still remain hypothetical. Now, to the extent that I agree with him, please, for God's sake, there, Balogun Osuntokun actually made that point very beautifully as well. To what extent, if you put it interrogatively, can you rely on what President Muhammadu Buhari normally tells Nigeria? Now, you, Dr. Abati, you are alive. You are the one who even posed the question. Now, Mr. President told Nigerians, on the one hand, that he has an anointed candidate. But because of the nature, the attitudinal disposition, the hostility of Nigerians, that they may neutralize him. So he says he wants to keep the name to himself. The next thing, and we are told here, is that, well, he will have He believes in consensus. I am arguing here on this platform that, look, if, for instance, President Buhari had not misled people, if he has been forthright, if he has been righteous, if he has been very patriotic in ensuring Nigeria that will be completely free from political chicanery, there's no way a person like Professor Oshibajo, the vice president, will have come out to say he will want to compete. I'm assuming that under normal circumstances, there's no way Oshibajo will have woken up to the idea that he wants to be president and he will be competing with Tinubu. No, I'm reasoning deeply to say that in this case, he must have been induced into error. So I will expect under normal circumstances that Oshibajo will have remained very fidel to Tinubu. But because our president now is not giving us a good lead, and I conclude on the note that, look, if you did say that Rotimi Akeredolu of Ondo State, a state that God consciously built and blessed, you will see that he wouldn't have declared, say, no time for Democracy Day, that he will want to do X, Y, Z. It is simply because of this very dishonest approach to political governance, where a Minister of Interior will now come to give an idea that it is ISWAP and so on and so forth. No, far from it. It is a protest against...
On that note, Professor Akintenewa will take this short break. When we return, the conversation will continue, and I hope by then we'll have been able to re-establish connection with Professor David Aworawo, because the next subject is right down his alley. Stay with us. We'll be right back. The president of the Academic Staff Union of Universities, Professor Emmanuel Osodeke, has turned down an intervention fund by Brekete Family, a reality television and radio program focusing on human rights issues, to end the union's months-old strike. The ASU president and his team were invited on Saturday morning to the radio show by its host, Ahmad Issa, popularly known as Ordinary President, to explain to Nigerians why the union is still on strike. The union had on February 14 declared a one-month warning strike to protest the non-implementation of its demands by the federal government. But on March 14, the union extended the action by 8 weeks, citing government's failure to fully address its demands. The union thereafter extended the strike by another 12 weeks. Professor Sodeke said the extension is aimed at giving the government more time to satisfactorily resolve the issues. Okay. The Brekete reality television and radio program station is saying it even opened a bank account to raise up to 18 billion naira for ASU, to get ASU to return to the classrooms. Parents are concerned that their children have been at home since February, and the meetings between the federal government and ASU over the agreement, the federal government-ASU agreement, dating back to 2009, is still creating problems. There was a donation of 50 million naira cash coming from Udom Emmanuel, governor of Akwa Ibom State, through the Brekete family radio station, which was again rejected by the ASU president. That there are more serious issues, not about crowdfunding, but about the government of Nigeria honoring agreements. It's half a loaf, or how do they say it, of bread.
It's
not better than the whole bread itself. Professor Awurawo, people are trying to do crowdfunding for ASU. ASU is saying no, agreement is an agreement, and government must act responsibly. Why don't you just collect money that is coming from the public and stop the strike so that our children can return to the classrooms, and you too can go back to your work? Professor Awurawo, yeah, serious matter, really.
Yes, indeed, very serious matter.
Okay, he's on sit now.
Very, very serious matter. The efforts to do crowdfunding for ASU has been rejected, and majority of ASU members are in support of the rejection. The major reason for that position is that it's unsustainable. If crowdfunding is carried out now and some money is made available and the strike is called off, where do we go from there? So it's our thinking that something more elaborate, something more enduring is what is required to end this strike, and not just some flash in the pan, so to speak, flash in the pan crowdfunding, which will just postpone the evil day. Besides, it is not just the issue of giving some money to ASU that is the main thing. You recall that we also have issues, regarding infrastructure, which is very fundamental. It's as important as the ASU members getting better pay, and UTAs and other issues that are there. The good thing is that we hear that the negotiations with government is progressing. They are making progress, and that hopefully in the next couple of days or weeks, the negotiations will be concluded and action will be taken, which will lead to the calling off of the strike. So crowdfunding, as the Brekene family tried to do, is commendable, because it shows that they are concerned and they want to be part of the resolution of the problem, but it's unsustainable. So rightly, ASU has decided to reject it.
Okay, Professor Akintenwa, this is also your constituency.
Rather than come out with an end note, I prefer to give a footnote to what Professor Awurawo has just given. Apart from the fact of non-sustainability of the amount of money, we need to first of all ask, what is the percentage of 50 million naira compared with what is being asked for? What is it? Now, when you give 50 million, for instance, to what extent or what really can this do? It will not impact. What ASU is asking for is not simply for a single university. It's for all the universities. Now, 50 million naira to be shared for how long? First of all, they have an agenda of probably they are talking about raising billions. When are you going to have these billions, all right, made available? When will they be given? So are you now saying that you can take money today and the next thing you go back to the classrooms and then you are unable, for instance, to sustain that? Where this powerful argument of Professor Awurawo comes in. So I think that we are rejecting, we are setting aside the responsibility of government. And the beauty in the position of ASU is that ASU is helping the government of Nigeria to learn how to respect the principle internationally recognized, pacta sunt servanda, sanctity of agreements. When you voluntarily negotiate an agreement, you voluntarily append to your signature, you voluntarily sign and ratify an agreement, then it creates obligations for you. So you cannot in the morning ratify an agreement, then in the afternoon you complain about it, in the evening you are doing away with that. No, it doesn't show responsibility. It doesn't give any good image to a government that wants to be respected in international relations. So if ASU is now saying that, please, for God's sake, you did an agreement with us, we agreed. If you are having difficulties and you want a renegotiation, for instance, etc., you will give a part payment. then the next thing you will continue to renege. No, it doesn't work that way. I think the ASUU must be commended for not trying to take what they call a carrot and stick. You give a small something, carrot, then later on you come and bastardize them. I think as it is, while we commend the family that is trying to raise money, it is the federal government that actually should be engaged in fundraising. It shouldn't be families. Why should they take the academia for granted, for God's sake?
Okay, Professor Akintenewa, let me bring you into the conversation. Chikogia.
Yeah, further to what both learned professors have said, it is obvious that the government has not lived up to its agreement with the unions. And it's a pity because, like we keep saying over and over again, you know, we all went to school in Nigeria. I did my secondary, my primary, my tertiary schooling in Nigeria. And as far as I know, I got the best, you know, comparable to anywhere else you can find in the world. When I got my certificates, because I have two from the University of Lagos.
Oh, okay. I was just going to ask from which village university.
No,
okay.
we went to first class universities.
Okay.
You were the ones that went to those little. You know, we could get jobs anywhere we wanted in the world. Our university was rated as the same as the London colleges and all of that. But that's not even the issue now. The issue is that I commend seriously the initiative that this radio family has taken. You see, but it's just, maybe we can call it like a misapplication of what they can do. Because yes, obviously we know the kind of money they want to raise will not sort out the whole of the ASUU situation. But they can use it and start intervening in different aspects of, you know, individual universities, maybe in infrastructure. You build 10 classrooms with that in one university, you build two. It's still going to be an improvement on what was there. So they can use those kind of interventions just for infrastructure improvement, while government, because it's obvious that the government has no money. That is the problem. That is what all this somersaulting and all this reneging on agreements that we've been seeing. This government has absolutely no money. The country is over-leveraged, we are debt-ridden, and we cannot fund education anymore, and it's just a pity with what is going on in the country.
Yemi Adamalekun, is enough with the funding of education in Nigeria?
You know, I think I'm excited because 1 year from May 29, we're going to have a new president. And I dare say that if ASUU doesn't buck and chooses to make this an election issue, whoever comes in as Nigeria's next president needs to land with whatever it is that he promised he was going to do while he was campaigning. I slightly disagree. I won't commend Berekete family because I think it just shows a lack of understanding of the challenges. 50 million naira for almost 100 federal universities is not even up to 1 million naira per university. And what would that do? And so while, okay, maybe I should commend the intent, but I think it's also a lack of understanding of the gravity of it, which...
No, but more monies were coming in. More money,
The projection was 18 billion.
50 million.
Yeah, but I think, well, I think maybe, okay, so I should rephrase. More monies were coming in. It still shows a lack of understanding of the issue. Because we cannot, the same way we say we cannot entrepreneur our way out of structural problems in Nigeria, we cannot crowdfund our way out of a government's responsibility. So unless the government is saying that, you know what, we're not funding tertiary education anymore. Every year, we will appropriate whatever, 10%, we'll share it within the universities, let universities raise money however they find. Then the Berekete family can then set up an intervention fund. And then, as you rightly said, Mr. Ogea, give specific universities any amount of money to augment what it is. But this, for me, is critical because now we're fully in election season. So ASUU must now be very clear. Any presidential candidate must either be signing or ab initio. First of all, I mean, you need to review the agreement again. An agreement of 2009 where our revenue profile was a certain level is very different from 2022, where this administration has taken exchange rates to 600 naira plus on the black market. But every presidential candidate must have clear ideas of how they plan to fund tertiary education and engage ASUU. And ASUU must then say anybody that our members or students must vote for has to be either candidate A, candidate B, or candidate C, because they have promised to do this because they understand the issues. This is a critical time. And I dare say, while students have been at home for a long time, it might really be worth the sacrifice for another year to get government to understand and make a clear stand about its role in education. We say we don't have money, but we continue to waste money. And it makes it very difficult for associations like ASU or students to keep hearing that we don't have money, yet you were confident in charging people $240,000 for an application form. Yet our Attorney General of the Accountant General of the Federation was being arraigned of 8 billion naira in fraud. So you keep hearing this large amount of money that government officials keep spending. People are campaigning, governors are flying up and down in private jets to campaign. And you say we don't have money. So while that might be true in terms of our books, but it kind of falls on deaf ears from what Nigerian citizens are seeing. So I hope ASU is able to drive this home and not buck when Buhari comes and says, oh yeah, let me give you small money so you can return to classrooms before elections next year. Okay,
let's take one more subject, still on election matters. The election management body, INEC, on Friday said it has recorded an unprecedented surge in the number of citizens seeking to register as voters ahead of the 2023 general elections in Nigeria. The chairman of INEC's Information and Voter Education Committee, Festus Okoye, disclosed this in a statement. According to the statement, and I quote, the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has received reports from our states indicating an unprecedented surge in the number of citizens that wish to register as voters and the challenges they face across the country. In some states, the sudden turnout of prospective registrants is overwhelming. End of quote. Consequently, the Commission convened an urgent meeting with all the resident electoral commissioners on Thursday, the 9th of June, to review the situation so that eligible Nigerians who wish to register are able to do so. The necessity to urgently deploy more voter enrollment machines to ease the congestion at the registration centers was identified as a priority. And subsequently, INEC has also said it is considering the possibility of extending the deadline for voter registration, as has been demanded by the political parties and also concerned stakeholders within civil society groups. Yemi Adamalekum, you have been monitoring the process. Should INEC extend the voter registration exercise as it extends the deadline for the primaries for the political parties? And is there hope that INEC is going to go in that direction?
Certainly. As I said on Sunday, last week Saturday, at the electorate program that we co-hosted, the chairman said in over 3 decades of either being a voter or a manager of the electoral management body, that voters' registration has always been extended. And he doesn't see why this will be any different. And then yesterday at the concert that was held at TBS, he also said the same thing. To be honest, they don't have a choice. One, Nigerians, lastminute.com, yes, that's not INEC's fault. INEC has been registering for 11 months. But then between that then and now, our primaries are over. People now have candidates. They now have skin in the game. People are more tired than they were 11 years ago. People have suffered losses than they hadn't suffered 11 years ago. And the amplification of the fact that voting gives you an opportunity to take a decision or to act is now getting more people interested in participating. And INEC is understaffed. They don't have enough people running the process, so it's a longer process for people to register. So yeah, they don't really have a choice, even if we just look at their own infrastructure to deal with the demand.
Professor Awurawo, do you agree that INEC has no choice in the matter?
Certainly. INEC has no choice. INEC just has to go ahead and stand. We made this point, several times before, and it's important we reiterate the point that the surge calls for an extension. It is true, INEC has given a long time. The process started, close to a year ago. But since we now have a large number of individuals indicating interest to register, in different locations across the country, it just makes sense that INEC will do the right thing by extending. Let me quickly tie that up with some of the comments that were made earlier. The gentleman who spoke, the security expert who spoke, and talked about 30 years, SECO and all that, What one can say about that is that, that's a subject in historiography and philosophy of history. Many of these things are just coincidences of historical development, which have nothing to do with the movement of, historical issues. What wise people do is to learn from, previous experiences and do better. And how to do better this time is for INEC to conduct a credible election. If election that is credible is conducted, the winner wins fairly and squarely, the loser loses fairly, there will be no basis for, riot and unrest, as we had in 1964 and as we had in 1983 when the election was won fairly and squarely and then annulled by the powers that be at the time. So INEC will do well to extend the registration. We also do well to go further than that, to conduct a free and fair and credible election, such that when the process is over, nobody will have cause to complain, and whoever emerges is a game of numbers. Nigerians will, those who vote will be happy, who vote for that candidate, and those who do not will also have to accept that, well, their choices or their choice didn't carry the day, but the person who has won is the choice of majority. These are things we need to learn from, the experience of the past, and this is what we must insist that INEC does, so that post February 2023 election, there will be peace and stability in Nigeria.
Well, Chike Oga, your thoughts on this? INEC extending the deadline for registration.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's something that is commendable, and with the kind of outpour of new voters, especially the new demography that seems to be coming up of youths that are realizing that they have to take their destiny in their hands. Otherwise, the way we were waiting for tomorrow, they just realized that their own tomorrow is almost gone as well. So they decided to jump up. But in all of this, something that is very instructive to me that I've noticed, and I think INEC should put an eye on it, is that we're beginning to see, especially in the social media, some areas where voters are being intimidated. It would be voters are being, some areas in Lagos, maybe because they are not comfortable with the ethnicity of the people, that populate those areas, and they don't want them registered. Because people have been sleeping, the fact that they've woken up now and they are not ready to sleep on their rights anymore doesn't mean you should keep them suppressed forever. So I think people should be allowed to go and register unhindered. Nobody should disturb them, whether area boys, whether whatever, and let us have new elections in Nigeria. Elections exactly like Professor Awurawo just said now, that will be credible, that will be able to stand, before anywhere, and people will be able to say, yes, these are what the Nigerian people want, and not what some godfathers or whoever wants to conjure. We should leave that behind. We should be going forward now.
Okay,
Yes.
Professor Akintenewa, the last word on this so that we can take our final subject of the day. Reflect.
I think that we have a situation of not having credibility. Democracy, INEC, does not have the independentist character that it's supposed to have. The moment, for instance, anybody in government can easily come and prioritize, impact on INEC to change a statutory date. Statutory because you have already agreed on that. And then you are changing the goalposts every time. It's not good. Now, for whatever reason, reasons of force majeure, agreed, you want to extend. When will it be possible for INEC in its own lifetime to stick to an agreement? Really?
Okay. On that note, we take our final subject of the day. And Professor Akintenewa, this is for you in just about 2 minutes. A court in Bolivia has found former interim president Janine Áñez guilty of executing a coup in 2019. She was sentenced to 10 years in prison. Áñez was accused of coordinating the removal of her predecessor, Evo Morales, Anez, who has been held in pre-trial detention, was convicted for dereliction of duty and acting against the Constitution. She has denied the allegations and said she will appeal the decision. Bolivia. Janine Anez. Professor Akinterewa.
She's going to appeal, whether she's not going to appeal, that gives a question to be answered by the African Union. African Union says no forceful change of government, no unconstitutional change of government. But in the Bolivian case, the issue now is that you have somebody claiming that there was a vacuum. Morales, for instance, with his allies, all of them ran away, and a vacuum was created. And she came in to now say, look, you know, there cannot be vacuum. And she proclaimed herself. But she's not being accused of taking over power forcefully or otherwise. The lesson to be learned from that one is so simple. It is simply that if there is vacuum, even if you say nature abhors a vacuum, going by the African mentality, you do not have to go there and impose yourself. Please go through the normal procedure. It's as simple as that. 10 years, the prosecuting lawyers asked for 15 years. But for whatever reasons, they gave her 10 years. But the critical point to also note was that you sent somebody out packing, but you never expected that he will still come back. The allies of Morales came back, and they now visited you with their own anger. It's as simple as that.
Well, Yemi, last word on this, quickly.
Well, I mean, it's the whole issue about nature abhors a vacuum. I would have to. It's interesting. I mean, I think proper process, due process, would have helped her case significantly. But it'll be interesting to see what the appeal court then delivers. At least it's an example of a former head of state, unlike what we have here on this side of the world, being prosecuted. This is 2019. We're in 2022. Short. It's not 10 years. She didn't say she was sick. She didn't come to court with a neck brace or a leg brace or a headache. So we'll see what the appeal court throws up.
Okay, thank you very much, Yemi Adamolekun. Thank you, Professor Akinterewa, Professor Awurawo, and Chike Ogea. And thank you all for watching. You've been watching This Day Live, the Sunday talk show, here on Arise News. I'm Ruben Abati. From my entire team here in Lagos, it's bye for now, and thank you very much for watching. We'll see you again.